Well, there's a question here that says, what do you consider the most significant accomplishment in your life?
I don't know what that would be.
Well, teaching children was quite an accomplishment,
yes,
wasn't it?
Yes.
Do you ever see any of your pupils?
Oh, yes. I see them. I'm so glad to see them. They're so glad to see me.
That's nice. They appreciate what you did for them.
Well, I don't think I did so much for them, but it's just the fact that years ago we used to be together, you know. Yes, I was to a wedding reception here about a month ago, and I pretty much knew there'd be one lady there that had, because she was a relative, that had gone to school to me. But land, when you don't see anybody for 55 years, you can't expect to walk up and pick them out.
No.
But I don't know how she found out that I was there. Maybe she asked somebody about me. I think she knew my married name. But anyhow, she sent somebody over there to tell me that she wanted to talk to me. And she didn't tell me her name. And of course, I said, well, your face still looks familiar, but I can't remember who you are. And we just had the best visit together. She lived at High Landmark, I believe, Ohio, and she was a widow. And we talked for a long time. I was just so glad to get to see her.
That is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think about all the changes, like in raising children, discipline? You've seen a lot of changes where discipline is concerned.
Yes, I think you do. I think, well, I don't know, some people say children are harder disciplined now than they used to be, but I don't think so. There's these clubs, you know, these Girl Scout clubs and Boy Scouts and 4-H clubs and, well, in the high schools they have these future farmers, you know, and things like that. And that all helps children to understand a lot of things that they didn't have any knowledge of when they were years ago, when if they'd have lived years earlier, you know. It teaches them a lot of things.
It does. Were you a 4-H family? Were you a 4-H family?
Oh, no, they didn't have 4-H clubs when I was young.
How about your son?
Yes, they belonged. Both of them did. Donald was club leader for years in the 4-H club. And Keith belonged to the 4-H club when he was young, too.
They benefited a lot from it.
Yes, Keith was a king one year in Elm County. And they both got a lot of benefits from it. It taught them how to get along with other children, too, you know. That's a good deal.
Yeah.
You know how to be in a group and get along, you know, and learn how to cooperate.
That's right. You've seen a lot of changes in your lifetime.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever flown?
Oh, yes.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
You like that?
Yes, I like to fly. We can't fly very much. My husband, he's one of these fellows that gets sick in the back seat of a car sometimes.
Oh.
And, of course, we did go up. My older son used to have a pilot's license for a while. And he was bound to take us up. And Harry didn't want to go. He said, I'll get sick just as sure as I go. And I think that only makes it worse when you feel that way. And it was a little bit turbulent when we got up, I don't know, 1,000 feet or more. I just got so white I was afraid he was going to faint.
Oh.
And so we don't try to fly very much. We took an ocean trip once and went to South America and out in the Caribbean area, you know, between here and South America. But he was all right as long as he was lying down. But as soon as he got up, then he was sick. So he didn't get too much out of it, so we never tried to go anymore like that because it just was too hard on him.
Well, you have traveled then.
Yes, we've traveled.
Right.
I've been in 24 of the states in the Union. And we've been in Canada and South America and the Caribbean islands and Mexico. We've been in Mexico.
Do you remember when you got your first car?
Well, I used to drive my father's car for a while when we first had one. That was back about 1920 or 21. And then my sister and I were both teaching, and we bought a car together. And, I guess that must have been about 21 or 2, somewhere along in there, you know. We drove then. we both taught here in this township, and we could arrange so one of us could, whichever one was the farthest away from home, why, she'd take the other one to her school and then go to her school, you know. It was a big help.
Before that, it was horse and buggy.
Yes, we had a little Western pony I used to drive to school. And, well, we got the car shortly after Gladys got to teaching. Well, we got a car.
Do you remember when you first voted?
Well, I've never missed an election since I've been old enough to vote.
Good.
But I just can't remember exactly what it was like. See, that's when...
You don't remember who you voted for the first presidential election?
Was it the election in Harding? Well, I worked on the polls
Did you?
here in this township for 20 years.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know. I was voting when Harding was ran for president, but I can't remember if that was the first time or not. I can't remember how long ago that's been. You know, that's been a long time.
And now they're voting on equal rights for women. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's for the birds.
We have equal rights, don't we? What do you like most about homemaking?
Well, I like to have friends in for a visit and cook a meal for them. I used to like to have my family come in, you know, and for dinner and supper. They always stayed for supper. And with one time I had 11 children, so, you know, when you had them in there, you had somebody to cook for.
I guess so.
But they all helped me, and I used to enjoy having them. And we got a big recreation room in the basement. In the summertime, sometimes we'd have barbecues and put a couple long tables down there in the basement, you know, and eat down there. It was fun. Of course, it was a lot of work, too, but I just enjoyed it, having them all come in.
How about what you dislike the most about homemaking?
I really couldn't say. I had to do so many things that I disliked that I wouldn't know which one would be the worst. I can't really say there was any one that stands out above others. But I really couldn't say now what I dislike the most.
How about spring house cleaning? Did your mother do spring house cleaning?
Yes.
And was that a big event? Everything went out and was scrubbed?
Well, we'd always take it one room at a time and I'd clean one room and then get it back in order and tear up another one.
But it was torn up.
Oh, yes. Sometimes we had, I can remember when we had red carpets, you know. We used to take those old things out and hang them on the line and beat the dust out of them, you know. Then put them down again, put fresh straw under the carpet, use a carpet stretcher to pull the carpet up tight and tack it fast along the wall, you know. And, well, it was different than it is now. But it had to be done. The people who kept their houses nice and clean years ago, they really had to work.
I guess so.
Especially if they had a large family. Of course, after the family got a little bit older, they could always help a little, but there's always a time when they're small and the mother really has her hands full.
That's right. Times have changed. What do you consider the most significant accomplishment in your life as a woman?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know what that would be.
You've done a lot.
Yes, but there isn't any one thing that stood out above everything else. It's just kind of a day-to-day affair, you know. I can't think now of any one thing that I could say was significant.
What do you do for recreation?
Listen to television occasionally. Oh, I'm not much of a television man because my hearing is rather poor, and that makes it a little bit hard, you know, to enjoy it. But I like to hear the news, and when some person gives a speech or a talk, you know, when there's no background noise, I can always hear that quite well. And I read some, but my eyesight is like everything else when you're nearly 90 years old, right? It's getting a little weaker. And I used to do hand work, you know, crocheting and embroidering and things like that. But as I get older, I don't try to do that. I don't care for it anymore. Oh, I read some, not too much, because I'll tell you, I've got a 9-room house here. I have to spend all my time trying to keep clean enough to get in and out.
That's a lot of work.
The
The building out here with the bell on, was that your dinner bell?
That was here when we came here.
Was it? Uh-huh. Everyone used to have a dinner bell?
Yes, that was quite a significant thing in years gone by. The women, the farm women, used to ring the bell when they had dinner ready because the people farmed with horses and they could hear the bell. It doesn't do any good now because you can't hear it with a tractor. But then it meant dinner time and supper time. And also if there was some emergency of some kind, like a fire or somebody gets seriously hurt or something and they had to have help, they used the dinner bell for that purpose too. But now it doesn't get used very much.
What did they do about fires?
Well, you call a local fire department. Here we call mostly a New Haven Fire Department.
But before they had fire departments.
Well, I don't know. I guess they just put it out the best they could themselves or let it burn, one or the other. Because you had no other way of, you can't put a house fire out with a bucket of water.
No, that's for sure. Did you ever work outside the home after you were married?
No.
No. Do you think you'd like to teach?
No?
Uh-huh.
No, I wouldn't now. But I did when I taught. I like to teach.
Uh-huh. It's changed a lot.
Yes, and now I'm old enough that the noise and confusion, there's a certain amount of it you have to put up with.
That's right.
It'd be different.
Did you ever get to teach just one grade? It was always a whole school.
One year I had 44 pupils.
Oh my.
And I had 10 in the primer class. They call it primer class then. I guess it'd be kindergarten now, but a couple of them was awful slow. I had tried to give them a lot of attention. And if you give too much attention to one, you have to cheat some of the others.
Yeah.
Lots of times I couldn't get through school and all the classes, by closing time. Sometimes I'd have to leave the spelling classes or something go, because I just couldn't make it in the time that we had.
Did they stress more good penmanship?
Well, yes, we taught writing and we did what we could with it, but we didn't have time. When you have more than you can cover, you have to take the most important, like reading and arithmetic, and that sort of stuff. That's more important. But writing was stressed as much as you could stress it in the time that you had.
How about memory work? Did you do a lot of memory work?
Well, some in reading mostly.
I don't know if they do memory work anymore.
I don't know either how that is. Your school's so much different. I wouldn't have, and not having any contact with it now anymore, I wouldn't know.
Do you remember any funny things that happened in school?
Oh, well.
Did your pupils ever play tricks on you?
No, but one year when the first day of school, well, the school had stood open through the summertime, and I guess the register that had the names of the youngsters on was in the top drawer of the desk. When I opened that drawer to get the register out, a mouse jumped out.
Oh, no. He wasn't in there accidentally, was he?
No, I don't know. I don't think any of the children put it in there. I think it's because it was in there. Only 2 or 3 of the children there in the morning yet, and I know they jumped about as high as I did when the mouse jumped out.
Did you have to get the school ready in the fall?
Well, there was the trustee generally had someone come around a week or 2 before school started and clean the school up. Get it, oil the floors and clean it up. As much best they could.
Did the trustees see to it that you had wood?
Yes. You know, they took care of the fuel. Some trustees were much better than others. Some came around and seen what you, to find out if you needed anything, you know, or anything needed repairing or anything like that. But others didn't, you know. It just depends on the man, I guess.
Now, when you were a little girl going to school, did they have blackboards?
Yes.
On the wall?
Yes. Yeah,
They had little slates at one.
Yes, yes. I had a slate when I went to school.
Was that furnished by the school, or did each child have their own?
Each child had to furnish his own.
Did you have school programs?
You mean entertainments?
Uh-huh.
Well, not very much. Sometimes at Christmas time, you know, we'd have a Christmas program. And on the last day of school, sometime we'd have a picnic. But that was about all. And occasionally they'd have what they called box socials to raise money to buy equipment for the school, you know. And then, of course, that would generally be on a Saturday night. And once in a while I remember one time we had an oyster stew at the school. But it was unhappy to have things like that. There was nothing there to do with, you know. You had to bring in everything. Dishes, whatever you needed, tables and cooking utensils. Like for the oysters, we had to get stoves in there, you know, and get some of the ladies in the school district to come in, you know, and help you. And it was nice because it got people together, and it was kind of a sociable affair. But it was a lot of work, more than it'd be now, you know, the way schools are located and furnished up now.
There wouldn't be any facilities, would there?
None at all. Not even water.
No. Would the water freeze up in the winter?
Well, no, I don't believe we ever had it to freeze up. But I can remember the children carried their lunches to school, and there was some of them used to always sit their lunch buckets on the back window in the back, what was the back part of the school, set them on the windowsill. I remember several times some of their lunches was frozen solid when they'd go to eat their dinner. So I told them after that to set their buckets close around the stove, you know, and they did.
What would they bring in their lunches?
Oh, sandwiches, and farmers always have apples, you know, and sandwiches and fruit and pie or cake, whatever their parents had on hand. Mostly it depended, I think, on sandwiches for a good deal of their lunch.
Well, let's see here. Do you think that being an extension homemaker helped you in raising your family?
Yes, I do. I got lots of good ideas from the home extension lessons.
And your family benefited from it?
Well, yes, I think they did. And cooking, you know, and making new dishes that I wouldn't probably have fixed, you know, ordinarily. And then there was lessons on sewing, and if you made any clothing for your children, especially when they were small, you know, that always helped.
Who were the agents when you first started? Do you remember?
Well, for years, the lady that, I don't know if she's still living or not, was agents on, and she was so nice. What was her name?
Dorothy Morehouse?
Dorothy Morehouse. She was lovely.
Before her, do you remember?
No, I can't remember who was the agent before her. She was in a long time, you know.
I know she was. Did they always have agents?
Well, I don't know if they did earlier or not. She's the first one that I can remember of.
And when your mother belonged, was it pretty much the same as it is now?
No. It was like I said, they were interested in different things than people are interested now. Now they're interested in microwave cooking and that sort of stuff. In those days, that sort of stuff was out. They were more interested in canning and, like you say, soap making and all that sort of thing, you know, that they don't do now. Drying vegetables.
Well, how did you dry your things?
Well, I never dried anything but corn and apples. And the apples, you should have a sort of apple that didn't mush up easily, and it didn't cook up easily. It held its shape. And then I had a regular dryer. It was a large contrivance square, like a square box about 4 inches or maybe 6 inches deep. And in the bottom half of it, you set it on the stove and put water in the bottom half of it. And then the upper half, you set your fruit and corn or whatever you dry, put that on there, spread it out in a thin layer over there, and the heat from that hot water would dry it. Of course, there had to be a vet for the steam out on one side, and you'd occasionally have to stir it, so that it would get dried thoroughly, and it was quite a long process to dry it.
Is that the same way your mother dried?
Yes.
She had the same kind of a contraption,
Yes.
did she? I always thought they let the sun dry the food.
I don't know. Maybe some people did, but we got that dryer, and we always used that. I guess the sun would dry, but it would take, I imagine, quite a bit longer unless you do it in very hot weather and had a place like a roof, like a porch roof or something to put it on where the heat from the building, reflected back on it. I don't know. I never dried any that way. I have made some preserves, strawberry preserves,
That's done out in the sun? Is it sun cooked?
Well, I guess I can't remember. It's been so long. It seems to me we cooked them, and then didn't cook them till they were entirely thick enough, then set them out.
Oh, I see.
I just believe that's the way we did it. Set it out on a hot roof or something where it would get real hot, I just can't remember if we put them in the jars before we set them out there, or if we I think that's the way we did it, set the jars out there. I can't really remember. It's been so long ago, and I didn't do very much of it. There's a lot about it. It was much simpler to just cook it till it was thick enough and be done with it.
I was thinking about the road out here. You've seen a big change in that, too, haven't you? When you first moved here, was it just a path?
Well, no, it was a road, but it was a dirt road, It had gravel on, but it wasn't hard surfaced. And in dry weather, it would be awfully dusty, And if the wind was from the south, you'd get the full benefit here on the north side of the road.
Yes.
Couldn't hardly use the front part of your house, because the dust would just roll in clouds. And we always had to keep the doors and windows shut to keep the dust out. But this road's been paved now for quite a few years. I don't know, I'd say 15, 18 years anyway, I think.
And how far are you from Maple?
About a mile. But there's nothing there in the way of, it's just a place where people live. There's not even a filling station there anymore. There's a tavern there, and that's the only thing outside of the residences.
Oh.
There used to be there was 2 stores there for a while, and there was one for quite a while longer. There used to be a blacksmith shop there, and things like that. But as the city grew closer to the country and people had better ways of getting from one place to another, those little places just gradually dwindled out.
Did the train stop there?
Yes, there used to be 2 passenger trains stopped. One going west about 11 o'clock in the morning and another one going east about 12:30 in the afternoon. And then on Saturday night, there was another passenger train that stopped. It got into Maples about 8 o'clock in the evening, and it stopped just on Saturday night.
Now, do the trains still go through?
Yeah, the trains still go through, but there are very few passenger trains left on I guess they call it the Amtrak now. It used to be the Pennsy.
That made a difference in small towns, too, didn't it? The amount of train transportation.
Oh, yes. That's right.
When your father had his general store, did most of his supplies come in by train?
Yes, most of them. There was a local, what they called a local. It was a train that stopped at all the small stations along the railroad, and you ordered what you wanted from the different wholesale houses in Fort Wayne. They shipped it out on that local. It stopped every morning around 8:30 or so, and left off the things that had been sent, out. And you had to go to the depot and get them and take them to their store and put them on your shelves.
That would have been before telephone, too, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, mostly.
So most of his ordering was done by mail?
Yes.
That'd be a long process, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, it would. It took 2 or 3 days. Of course, there's some things that, now like bread, that you automatically got on certain days, maybe on Monday and Wednesday and so on, But the other things, why, you had to order. We had a telephone in the store long before there was a real telephone line along here. I don't know how my father got one put in connected with 14. Of course, you had to pay. a toll call every time you called, but we often used that to order things that we needed, you know. You could order it like this afternoon and get it tomorrow morning, you know.
Fort Wayne was the center of things then, too. I mean, that was where most of your supplies came from.
I couldn't get what you meant.
Most of your father's supplies for the general store, did they come from Fort Wayne?
Yes, keep things that had to be refrigerated and that. We had an ice house, and they put up ice, you know, in the winter, and then used that to supply the refrigerator in the summer.
How did they do that in the ice house?
Well, they had a place, a building, and they'd cut the ice and cut it in blocks and tried to cut it so it was fit together pretty close. Then they covered the ice all over with a thick, heavy layer of sawdust, the sides and the top. And that was the way they kept the ice. And then as they needed it, why they dug the ice out, it was put in layers, you know, and in blocks. If you watched, why, you know where to dig to get the next, to open the next, get the next block out. And then they dig it out and wash it off and put it in the refrigerator. You had to do that about every other day.
And would their supply last pretty much through
Well, it wouldn't last all summer. Depended a good deal on the weather, you know. But in a hot summer, it wouldn't last all summer. But it would last pretty much up till maybe August.
Where would that ice come from?
Well, from ponds around here. There used to be a pond on this farm that they cut ice
I
from.
see. That was a job, wasn't
Oh,
it?
yes, it was a job.
I remember the Iceman.
Yes, in the cities. You were raised in the city, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Quite a difference. Was there a huckster out
Yes,
there?
there used to be hucksters through here. My father used to run a huckster wagon when he first had the store.
Did he?
I think they'd run about 3 routes a week. And then on Friday, they'd always go to town and take in the eggs and produce that they'd bought from the farmers, you know, and then lay in a supply of groceries, you know, and bring them back when they came. I used to go to town with my father in the summertime when he'd make those trips. He had a big covered wagon, you know, almost like a prairie schooner. And he'd take in the butter and eggs and then deliver them to the places, and then he'd pick up the orders of dry goods like shoes and hosiery and yard goods and shirts, ready-made shirts and things like that, and also groceries.
Well, that was a big trip,
Yes,
wasn't
it was. He'd leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was 10 o'clock when he got to Fort Wayne. It took about 4 hours because he had to load both ways. You're warm, aren't you?
Did people do their trading? Did they trade like eggs for something or instead of money?
Yes, that's the way they traded. They depended on their chickens, things like that, to buy their groceries.
They had to be agreeable, didn't they?
Yes.
Then he'd bring a supply back.